Okay, I'm going to attempt to do a very quick scene here. I always end up kind of embellishing and adding and adding and adding instead of a quick scene. It's kind of a medium scene. But let's try something out here on the very reflective mirrored gold cardstock, okay? Let's get some, it's very hard to see imagery stamped in here in totality when you're just stamping it directly in black over the top of the foil, because this foil is dark and reflects whatever, is within its reflective boundaries or whatever. But if we lay down some kind of white blocking out as a foundation, it does show the imagery so much better as a result, okay? I don't know, I have to use this stuff, but I really kind of miss this material when I don't use it for, I don't know, a few weeks or something like that. There's so many different techniques and options out there, to use the stamps. I almost start losing track, especially over these last 8 months. I've been using them, everything in so many different ways. It's just, you tend to forget certain methodology, even if it was just a couple months ago or something like that you used it, that you employed it, the techniques. Okay, now I'm not going to do this big full-on scene in here. It's going to be more of kind of like a picture book or something like that, where you have some imagery here and there, some text in another area, and a few foreground images. I'm leaving the depth of the piece to the drawing in general. Okay, I have a lot of DPI on here, dots per square inch. When I'm laying down my tones like this, and the imagery themselves are inherently deep in space, okay, in terms of visual depth. And I do it through texture, tone, and I don't know, just the tonal density of the dots used. Right? That's not completely dry. I don't think it is, at least. But it's, pretty dry. It dries darker than what it looks like when it's wet. Pigmentings, I don't know, for some reason they do that. Blacks look gray. Whites look a little bit more translucent with the tones underneath showing through. Something to the chemistry. Maybe when it's wet, being that it's oil-based, I don't know, maybe it just changes upon drying. So just kind of expect that. Okay, let's stamp our imagery right over here. We get plenty of leverage and get a good impression. See how I'm kind of moving my hand around? So I'm applying that pressure in many different areas. That way you don't have to use a huge amount of pressure overall, Okay, we can see our imagery really easy that way. Look at that. And see, that's the white block, and otherwise it would look really dark like that. It's reflecting kind of my dark ceiling right now. But look at that. And you see, the white, it could have been lighter over here, lighter down here. Sorry, lighter right here. Wasn't necessarily planned or anything like that, but isn't that fun? Okay. And let's try something. I'm debating on whether or not to try this image right here in gold ink. I don't know if it'll even show up. But let's stamping. If it doesn't show up on here, who cares? Then just stamp it in a darker color. Or you can stamp it in white. White would probably show up on here. I don't think I want to do that one, though. Okay, let me see. Galaxy Gold. Ooh. Brilliance inks, I'm telling you. You can't let it sit for too long because these are fast drying inks, so it's just like going to like a stays-on pad or something like that. You really have to re-ink your pads. Yeah, it's really dry. Okay, so let's re-ink our pad. This is one of those types of inks where I really recommend to people, if you get the pad, get the re-inker for it, you know. Naturally, the more you use it, the more you'll have to, you know, re-ink, but if you use it a decent amount, you'll really need to get that re-inker. With a lot of pads, you don't have to. Now, no, if you're not using it very often, no, you don't need to, but these pads are different. The inks are different than any other pigment ink pad that I have ever heard of. Okay, now there might be some other brands out there that are kind of geared towards the same thing, but I haven't heard of it, and that's kind of that there's some kind of binder in there or some kind of drying agent that helps these either expedite the process of drying on like a matte paper or having the ability to dry on non-porous surfaces, and that's what this foil really is. It's a non-porous surface. It's not quite as non-porous as something like, you know, like plastic or glass. Oh, well, I don't know. It might be as non-porous as plastic. It is really coated. I don't know if it, you know, these things have a plastic coating on them or what that gives it that, you know, that real kind of you know, glassy type of look or not, but I don't know, it's pretty cool. Okay, so let's see here. Let's bring in some additional leaves. It's not going to show up too much, I don't think. Well, it shows up pretty good. In fact, it shows up more than I thought. I've done some experiments on this, but I just haven't done it in a while. Okay, so these metallics, I'm telling you, they really lend themselves to a really fantastic, rich look, surface. You know, just gold on gold. You know, just inherently, if you just even, you know, if we just even think about that type of concept, it's really, I don't know, it sounds rich and elegant and so on and so forth, okay? Now let's just gold over that, okay? Now over here it gets a little muddled, but what we're going to do is we're going to layer it. We're not just going to go gold there, we're going to go with a black impression over the top of it. That, of course, I just re-inked that pad, so it's super juicy, and I don't think it'd be wise just to stamp over it quite yet, because I think if I stamp black over the top of it, that being so wet, when I pull the black, you know, inked stamp off of there, I think it's not going to, you know, this black isn't going to transfer over here because it's like we're, you know, stamping it into a puddle of wet, thick, golden ink, okay? So we need to heat set this a little bit so it gets at least a little bit more accommodating for the other tones to come, you know, or other layers of imagery to come. Alright, I rainbowed my foil a little bit. Okay, that means I kept the heat on there too much. But I did another video where I'm doing that for, you know, purposely. See that little rainbow up there? If you have it on too long, see that? In scenic stamping, I don't see that as a problem. Or really on any types of, stamping, but it does stand out a little bit. But in a scenic stamp, scenic stamping scene, we just look at that as, being a rainbow up there. Or maybe there's some mist or something like that that, is catching the light in a certain way. So in other words, it's a kind of a happy accident, maybe. I don't know. Okay, let's see if this... I don't know if I heated that, dried that off enough. Like I said, that this is a puddle of gold ink. So I don't know if I heated it up quite enough. Yeah, it's just not stamping over the top of it. This gold ink almost acts as a resist now for this black one. Let me see if I can re-ink this black pad and get a little bit more ink, transference, or I don't know, whatever you'd call. Let's see if I can go thick over thick and get it to transfer. I don't know. When we're stamping onto oil-based on oil-based, and especially if it's still a little bit wet, it's like I said, it doesn't transfer that well. So that black in here, I mean, you can barely see it right there. It's the gold. I don't know, maybe the gold looks like it's in front of the black, in which case that would be fine. But let's see if I can get this a little bit more dimensional here. I don't know. Let's give it a try. Yeah, it looks a little bit better. It's still not stamping over the gold really well, but it's thicker, so it looks a little bit better. And it's also kind of matching with the, the gold, the black impression over here. Okay, that worked. If you hold down a little bit longer, now don't squeeze into it, but just kind of stamp and hold. Just slightly longer. And maybe the ink is transferring, or maybe it's just setting up. It's starting to dry as I hold it here a little bit. It's not dry to the touch or anything like that, but these fast drying inks, like I said, it has some kind of drying agent in it, so it's going to be dry up, a lot faster than an ink of that, not of that sort. Okay, so that worked completely. See, I'm learning from this impression over here that didn't go. This one shows up a little bit more here, and then, but look at this black in front of gold here. So this is what we have here. I apologize. It's really hard to photograph these things and to show to people, like when you post it on Flickr or Facebook or something like that, because you're always in the picture when you're taking a photograph of these. And of course it looks so different depending on the amount of light being reflected in this. It's a mirror, it's a gold mirror basically. Okay, so that is that. Let's try some additional textures in here. I'm thinking about these rocks in here, or some sedge filler. I don't know if I'm going for the sedge filler right here, but I think I'll go for these rocks for sure. We'll see how it goes. All right, now what I'm going to do is, let's go, we have gold, white, and black. Maybe I'll try it in all three, okay? I'm ghosting it just to get, a variation of that gold. We'll stamp it over here on the road as well. If some of it goes into the grass, then so be it. No big deal. All right, that's the gold. This is a sloppy, wet thing right here. It's getting gold all over the place. Okay, let's see. Clean off my stamp a little bit more than I normally would. I don't want too much of this gold in the black, okay? Or maybe I'll go with white first. Yeah, maybe I should have worked from light to dark or something, I don't know. Okay, so here's some white. White really shows up pretty good. Okay. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, see that down there? It looks like this from a distance. And let's try some of that black. I'm kind of tapering it a little bit, where it's a little bit darker here and it fades out there. So I go with the first impression here and second, third, and I'm using kind of a real light touch with it. Okay, so that is that. As I say that, what I'm doing is I'm contemplating whether or not I want to heat set this down here. Why not? Let's just heat set it for 10 seconds. That's all it really takes. Okay, now let's try some pens in here. Let's go with, here's a gold and white paint pen, okay? As always, I apologize for always repeating myself in these videos, but sometimes someone hasn't seen any of the videos before, so they don't know this, but you really have to shake up these are acrylic paint pens, okay? And they really require a lot of shaking up to get that paint to mix up really well. But that's also the thing that really keeps them from not clogging on you. All right, let's see here. You have to see if where you're adding it is light or dark. If I add it in some areas, it's like a light color. And if I add it in darker areas, lighter areas, it's a dark color. If, for example, if I add it in the white, it looks dark, because it's darker than night. But if I add it in this foil area like this, well, that's a light too. Okay, so dark in the white, and light in the dark. But then there's various values of it. It changes values depending on the reflective quality that whatever you're reflecting in there. So. That's what makes it so dynamic, okay? I'm going to add some, okay, or a lot, I don't know, of this touch on the tops of my trees. So I'm really condensing my little dots and some of these little clusters. Okay, I'm not going to zoom in anymore because constantly, no matter how many times I see it, I start working off screen. In these videos, I apologize. Quality of my video editing or shooting, abilities. Maybe it's attention span or something like that. As I'm doing these scenes, I tend to forget about, where I have the camera. All right, but anyways, I don't know if you can see that this is like a beige tone. Okay, and it doesn't show up too much because it's it's not too much darker or lighter than the foundation. But see this all up here throughout, and it kind of brings those areas to life a little bit. And what I mean it's very little bit at this point in time, but that's one color, so what I'll do is I'll go back in with white, which should be a little bit more visible against this background. But these are a little bit of a lighter highlight, so I will use them a little bit more sparingly, maybe? I don't know. Let's see how it goes and see what it looks like. It looks pretty good. I'll just concentrate them in some areas. You know, I don't want this card to take too long to do. Okay, and then I'll put it on some of these rocks. These rocks are in the water, reflecting light coming from above. So I'm not coloring in the whole rock, I'm coloring the top of it because lighting is coming from above. Okay. Doesn't take more work to do, it takes less work. When you're doing lighting, coloring for lighting, you're doing less work because you don't have to fill in. You're not coloring in a whole area. If you're working with light, then you're kind of putting on the top sides of things. So if there's a rock that looks like this, you're just kind of coloring in the top portion, but leaving the bottom portion just as is. And that's coloring, but lighting at the same time. It reduces the amount of stuff to do. Okay? Alright, so you see that little shimmering highlights in there? Down there with the white? See how fun that is? And look at that. It's like really reflective. Now you can put some little reflective qualities on some of your leaves as well. Okay. Maybe I'll put the highlights on the golden leaves. But not a ton. The golden ones are probably a little bit more in the light. And when you do this, it makes the object more three-dimensional with a certain degree of, I don't know, a given character, okay? They're reflective. They have a lot, like a twinkle on them, something like that. But let's take a look at these leaves now. See, I didn't add a ton of them. It's not like Christmas lights or something like that. And, here's a couple little dots out here in the corner. All right. Okay, now let's try something here. Let's try to layer. We went white, and then with black impression over the top of that, heat set. Now let's try to add in some additional white over the top of this, so it's like you're sandwiching the forms within that certain texture, okay? Certain texture, certain value, white, light, okay? Okay, I don't want to add too much. I'm trying to remember. Did I just re-ink that one, or was it just the gold and the black? Okay, so here we go. Watch this right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do you see where it's barely showing right there? That little fog. And it's because I'm barely touching it. Now I'm going slower just to make a point here too. See that right there? Here it comes. It's getting a little bit stronger. But not by much, you know what I mean? You barely see it being applied. That's what you kind of want. In terms of when you first start doing this, okay? Look at this around my opening. I always like putting some of this around the opening of the bridge, having some fog around there like that. It's like some light is kind of leading into it. See these trees right here in the background? Let's put these in a little bank of fog, perhaps coming off of the water, or just, just moisture in the air, and it's being illuminated. It really looks fantastic on, well, I like it on everything, okay, but when you have it on gold foil too, it's like the shimmering, reflective light in the air. Doesn't it look kind of moody and atmospheric and kind of dreamy, maybe, like this? You can add in your foreground, wherever you want to. I like to oscillate things too. Fog, no fog, fog, no fog, okay? Most people, when they first start doing this, troubleshooting areas, too much ink on here. They go like this and blob, okay? Another thing is, when they get the hang of it, it's not precarious or anything like that. It's like, oh my god, I added too much. It's not like that. If I'm going like this over everything and I can't say anything anymore, that might be a little bit too much. But, what you want to do is you just want to, what I'm getting at is just hold it up at arm's distance periodically to get a good idea of how it looks overall. Okay, it's kind of easy to lose track of it when you're concentrating on a little 1-inch square area. All right, so there that is like that. But look at that. Isn't that really fun? Look how much light it brought into the scene too. See, I have it out going like that too. It's over here. All right, now it's time for me to look for a quote stamp. I've left space over there purposely to accommodate some sort of sane. This one's. Oh, I might have to pause the video. This is always kind of like the hardest part. Well, not really. I don't know. Some word stamps stand out to me more than others. But let me take a look and see what scenic sentiments we have to choose from that would go well in this piece. I don't think I want to wear Nature Always Wears the Colors Spirit. I'm using that one way too much. All right. I have this one that says, in the woods, we return to reason and faith. Now, this isn't the woods here, but I don't know. I just felt like using it. It's country, for sure. Maybe the path leads out to the woods or something, in that direction. There's other ones too, quotes on kind of the journey of one, whatever begins with one step, and, so on and so forth. But let's go with this one. Now I have some choices. I could do this in black. I can stamp this in gold, and it would show up. I think I need to stamp it out in a tone that's going to, be, somewhat the most visible. So I'm going to go with white. Now, if you don't like what you stamp out here, even in these fast-drying pigment inks, if you hopefully you don't wipe off everything else too if it's still wet, but you can just wipe this right off and stamp something else, or I don't know, go for a different color, whatever you want to go with. Okay, so see that right there? I think that quote stamps. I think quote stamps are beautiful on this foil. I love it in white too. And again, that brilliance. Okay, now you don't have brilliance ink. All you have is like a regular white pigment ink. Then emboss it over the top of that or something like that. I think that would look fantastic as well. Yeah. But okay, I think that looks pretty good. I am contemplating. Let's see. I think this is still going under a 30-minute card here, even if I do an extra step. Let's go with some Dr. Martin's Bleed-Proof White. There was this movie that I watched. What was it? Was it Pleasantville? I think. And they were driving down this road, and there were all these little white blossoms in the air that looked really spectacular. I think it was Etta James, At Last, or something like that, playing. Okay, so anyways, let's see here. I'm going to cover up that word stamp right there, to get some of the splatter going on here, but from a textural standpoint, I really like this look here, this white, splattering on here. I need to thin out my paint a little bit. It's so thick. I know it's giving me a little bit of a different look, but let me show you what this looks like up close. And as far as this card here, we'll call it a day. I think I can mat it and whatnot, but look at this splatter painting on here. Now it looks kind of crazy. It looks a little bit too busy, okay? We're looking at it from like 2 inches away, but, this is, viewing distance right here, I think. Yeah, it might be a little bit too much, but I think it looks fine like that. I can add a little bit white pigment in there too, just to kind of mellow that area out a little bit. So you take some of this, okay, and just come in here like this, and it's just kind of adding a kind of a textural element into the piece. That, adding that little. Think about as you're doing this, what you want is you're kind of going for like a powdery type of application of this ink. Okay, you're not going for something like terribly thick. Let's do something here too. Let's bring a slightly more balanced look to the foreground, I think. I'm looking for my trusty Reed's stamp. I always use it everywhere. Where are you? You're probably... Oh, here it is. You're right, always right in front of me. Okay, let's see. Gold and black again, okay. I have a video dedicated to, well, a couple stamps, but the Reeds are one of them. Just light, even pressure, decent amount of pressure. Don't go light with it or anything, but when you stamp with it, oops, stamp it low. I had like a lot of thick paint on that, but don't squash your tip here. All right, so that's one layer of that foreground there. Okay, take some, try to get as much of that off as you can. And let's go into the black. That kind of stamp and hold is really working. Make sure that when you stamp down, you don't wiggle it around, because it's easy to do, because that ink is very thick and it's oil-based, okay? There's not too much of a slipperier combination that you'll do, than an oil-based ink and then a mirrored, foil foundation. I mean, it's when you stamp it down, it's not like you're going, oh my gosh, it's slipping so much. You're stamping directly down, but just be mindful of it. It's not, some kind of precarious exercise. Although when I've stamped big, thick imagery like this down, and I've gone over the top of that, if I don't heat set that first one, there is just so much more ink on something like that than there is on something like this. So, it's like you're stamping into a puddle of, oil-based ink. So yeah, be careful about something like that. But here's this foreground right here. Oh, see that right there? Kind of added a little bit more of a base, and it kind of matches off the top in terms of a, I don't know, kind of textural kind of window. It's like you have stuff up here and stuff down here. I didn't stamp across this because of this road is coming out this way. I mean, I could put stuff there, and you're just saying the road is, that way, but I don't know. I just kind of left a little bit of a lead in. But here's this kind of this little foggy, see that right in there? Just barely any. But just from a textural difference. But look how rich this is. It's really hard to beat that foil like that. Reflectives are really fun to use, the iridescence and the foils, but starting off with just something super dynamic, rainbow holographics, the mirrored looking cards, and we're talking about it's not that much media. Now, and in terms of color, I did use this. I don't even know if I really needed this one right here. You barely see it, but I don't know. I think it adds to the overall look. White. I mean, this is, for the most part, a quick card. And this is a big card, too. This is like a quarter size right here. So it's, it's kind of slimline-ish, I would say. And, but as far as, having a decent payoff, look at these leaves up here, stamping that in gold, but look how that changes like that. And there's that, see that little bluish tinge back there? That's kind of, you know, it's not burning the surface. You can see like different colors in here. It's kind of that little rainbow. There it is right there too. See that? There's a little red there. So you can get all kinds of little different looks. I don't use this so often that I have a lot of control over my heat gun in achieving some different colors and whatnot, but you can kind of play around with it and see where it goes. Okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed the scene. I enjoyed it so much myself, and watching it come together. I have to remember about, stamping kind of that wet into wet, that black impression right there. You can't even see it. Didn't stamp over the top of my gold at all, so it's kind of hidden in the background, which is okay too, but, I have to think about, it's not only just color, but the thickness of the ink that has been applied down there in accordance with how much ink it'll accept if you stamp over the top of it without drying, okay? But, again, you just play around with it and just work with it. If the gold showed up in front of that, then the black would be my background leaves instead of my foreground leaves. So over here, it's kind of both because, I was stamping with a very dry black over the top of a very wet gold, okay? So viscosity considerations and whatnot. All right, so anyways, thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.